everybody. Welcome back to the first SE Community Conversations of 2021. Woo! We made it! Everybody, we made it! It's been a year. We started this series right at the start of that crazy whirlwind in 2020 as this opportunity to connect and stay connected as a community throughout all of the turbulence of the times, and we made it. We made it to here, and it's miraculous to be here with you all. I see a bunch of people signing on right now, and it's lovely to see those numbers coming up. We had more than 500 people signed up to be here with us today, and I can't be more honored to be with you. Welcome. Let's get things started, shall we? It's such a freaking fun lineup for today, and it's just the best way to kick off the year, I think. I want to introduce you to, well, first of all, myself. Hi, my name is Amie Leigh. I am the Director of Public Health Initiatives for the Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute. And I am delighted to host this series as a way to connect with you, connect with our community of somatic experiencing practitioners, to connect with our students, and connect with people around the globe who are just getting familiar with the neurobiological intervention that we think is amazing, also known as somatic experiencing. If you don't know much about it, it's a neuropsychological intervention method that brings resolution to trauma in the nervous system. And we are the official training institute that trains therapeutic practitioners and body-based practitioners in how to use that modality in their own practice. We offer a 3-year-long training program, of which people who are on the program today are students and board members, and people have completed that program. And I invite all of you to learn more about it if you don't already know. So that's a little bit about the Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute and what we do. And through partnerships, we do all different kinds of things. Like through our partnership with Therapy Aid Coalition, we're also helping to offer free and low cost support to emergency responders in this intense time. Check out Therapy Aid Coalition to learn a little bit more about that partner. We have other partners. So looking forward to being in touch with you about whatever you do, and figuring out ways we can keep collaborating and spreading the messages of health and wellness and ways to deal with, adapt, and be resilient in the face of the circumstances we're all facing in these times. So this conversation series was created specifically to create connection. We know in the nervous system that social engagement is really important. And so I'm sure plenty of you have been doing workshops, cool embodiment conferences, all kinds of fun things. But what we really want to create in this space is something different than a bunch of talking heads on a screen. We're creating the SE Community Conversations this year, of which they will be on every second Friday of the month. Mark your calendar, noontime, mountain time, to address current issues, bring people into engaged conversation. We don't want to just talk at you. In fact, everyone who's been invited on this panel was invited to come speak with each other. So it's like you could be in dialogue with all of us in dialogue, which is weird on Zoom. I mean, just forthright, it's weird. But we really know that prosody, engagement, and connection is an important part of our own ability to stay strong in a very practical and tactical kind of way. So throughout today's session, I want to introduce you to the features of your screen, which you're probably all Zoom masters by now. But at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to locate a couple of buttons. You'll see there is a button for chat. We're not using chat in this session. In fact, we wish we had disabled it in advance. We didn't, and I don't think we can mid-flight. Please don't use that as we're together today. It can get a little distracting to see the pop-ups. We really want us to be calm and peaceful in the session. That said, what I do want you to use is there's a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. In that Q&A section, anything that you write will be visible to everybody else who's present. And so let's just get to know our screen. Let's get to know who's present. And in that Q&A, if you want to go ahead and type in your first name or your first and last, whatever you want to share, and where you're chiming in from. There's already several hundred of us on the line, and I'm just watching the number go up by the moment. So I'm super excited. But go ahead and start letting us know who you are and where you are. And I see that's already populating. Okay, we've got Maine, Berkeley, Scottsdale. I see Kayleen, Texas, San Diego, Ohio, Ireland, oh gosh, Canada, British Columbia. We love our international community. We will keep working to figure out how to make this time zone workable for everyone around the world. Austin, more Canada, Maryland. Wow, you guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to see you all again. And the only way I can see you is in that Q&A. So here's something that's going to happen over the course of our time together. You can keep populating that. I love seeing who's here. Over our time together, today, since our theme is on body-based work, we're going to be doing different exercises, and we'd love to bring you on screen with us as we do them. Now, it's always a little awkward, so adjust our nervous systems to anticipate that in advance. And the language around it is very Zoom hierarchical oriented. Currently, you all are in the attendee side, and we're on the panelist side, and we technically promote you from attendee to panelist. So at some points, I'll be asking questions like, hey, would you like to come online for the next exercise we're about to do? And we'll just take about 5 to 10 of you for each exercise. And we'll have you raise your little blue hand to show us that you would like to come on. And we'll try and have different people each time. So as many of us get to see and be with as many of us as possible. If that sounds fun for you, sounds fun for me. It also sounds like a little bit of a technological challenge. So bear with us if we hit any bumps. But that said, why don't you get to know your little blue hand? How about if you are, the way you raise your little blue hand, as I'm saying that, is there's a raise hand button in the bottom of the screen. So let me ask some questions now. If you are currently a somatic experiencing practitioner, so you've completed the program, you're an SE practitioner in the world, hit the raise hand button so we can see who you are. And I see 23, 24, 27, 29. The numbers are going up. Fun. Yay. All right. So lots of your hands are going up for SEPs. That's great. Someone who's trained in our program, done the whole SE training, we call them SEPs. Somatic Experiencing Practitioner. And if you are someone who's not a therapist and looking for a therapist who's trained in these modalities, you can go to our directory and locate a Somatic Experiencing Practitioner in your state and get a session with one of them, which I think you might find incredibly relieving. I just had one last week, and oh my gosh, they always bring something unlike normal talk therapy. You're going to hear a lot more about that today. Okay, I'm going to lower all hands. If you're currently an SE student, not a practitioner, but a student, would you go ahead and raise your hand? So I'm seeing, that's flying. Ooh, tons of students. Okay, that number is flying up. I don't know if you guys can see how many hands are raised, but I'm seeing a ton of hands raised. All right, that's great. So you guys are finding where your little blue hand is for that. I'm going to stop you on that one. I'm going to lower all hands again. If you are not an SE student, not an SE practitioner, and you're interested in getting trained a little bit more in SE therapy over time, don't worry, I'm not tracking this to send you some sales pitch. I'm curious who wants to know what. So if you're interested in learning more about SE or finding an SE practitioner and you're not already in our little community, not a little community, big community, we're in over 38 countries around the world. And there are literally tens of thousands of people who've been trained in somatic experiencing modalities. Cool. All right, we're getting to know you guys too. We've got a nice mix today. Nice mix. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lower all hands. And this is the fun part. Thanks for letting me introduce you to the screen. Thanks for letting me introduce you to the series. As of this series, or as of today, I need you to, as we go forward, pop questions and questions into that Q&A chat as you have them. As specific as they can be, if they're directed to a particular individual who's speaking, you can put that in the chat. If you'd like to come on screen and ask it, we'd love to have you. We may or may not have time for all of that. But in that Q&A, if you're willing to come on screen, say, I'm willing to come on screen and here's my question. Or I'm not willing to come on screen and here's my question. And we'll read it for you. Last thing I'll say, technical speaking, we're also on Facebook Live right now. And on Facebook Live, you can't ask questions in the same way you can on the Zoom session. So if you'd like to find the registration link in our event on Zoom or on Facebook, you can still do that while the session is going on and jump over to Zoom if you'd like. Or you can put some questions into Facebook and we will see if we can't get a good relay chain to get those into this session too through different staff members. Our staff member, Danny, is an operations maven. She's over there in the attendee side with you and maybe responding to some of the different questions and answers with links and things like that as we go. Okay, all the technicalities done, out of the way. Here comes the fun. At this point, I'd like to invite my panelists to go ahead and start turning on their videos and come on screen with us. And I am getting a note from one panelist, a very esteemed one, in fact, who's having a hard time signing on. So I might fuss with this a little bit, but we have one of our board of directors members is also going to be on this today. So as y'all are introducing ourselves, I'll be working to try and figure out how to get Michelle into our program. And Rebecca, if you're online, Michelle needs another link sent to her so that she can access the Zoom panel. So how's that for technical glitches? Alrighty, here we go. You just saw your screen fill up with some incredible human beings who I'm more than excited to share this time with you. We'll be together for about 90 minutes. And I think by the end of the session, you should not only be inspired around body-based trauma resolution methods, but also you might want to connect to these individuals one-on-one or people like them in your community who might be versed in the very subject matter each one of them is. The SC community is many, many, many therapists of different kinds, but many, many body-based practitioners of different kinds. Yoga teachers, dance teachers, craniosacral, movement, embodiment, Feldenkrais, so many body-based practices. In fact, it's hard to figure out how to describe them all. We've already laughed about that as a group, right, gang? I could introduce you to them. I could read bios, but I think that's really boring. I think what's much more exciting is for you to get a feel of who you're with right off the bat. So I'm throwing all of us into the deep end if we're ready to go. You guys ready to go? Raise your little real hands. Okay, here we go, gang. As a matter of introducing ourselves, I would like to invite you to answer the question, what is important to you about your form of body-based trauma work in these particular times? And so don't all jump at once, but whoever wants to go first, I'm going to let you all choose what order you'd like to share in. Please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. We're almost, depending on where we're at, good afternoon. My name is Nikita Gupta. I go by she, her pronouns. And I'm an embodiment coach and a consultant. And I work with individuals as well as institutions to promote resilience and embodiment and develop the internal and external infrastructures by which we as individuals and communities can support one another in greater thriving. And this last year has been so incredible and so unprecedented for every single one of us, and certainly to folks in different degrees. And so my role has been to really augment this work, especially in a virtual space over the last year. I'm an educator who works on college campuses with students, staff, and faculty. And as I mentioned, I also work out in the community. So much of the work right now has been focused on how do we cope during these times? How do we even get through this? How do we, as one of my colleagues said, you know, there's the finish line and somebody keeps moving the finish line and we don't know when the end is. So for me in this work, it's been about a process of how do we be in uncertainty and how do we find that rooting through our body? And so for me, body-based work has been so crucial for me personally as an educator to help navigate myself and the own trauma and the disruption that I've experienced in my own life. And then as I serve the other folks that I'm in charge of serving, how can I help them to also find anchoring in their own bodies? So it's been incredibly important, especially when the outside world has been so difficult to have control over or influence over in the larger scheme of things. So really working with what is it that I can control? And we found that, you know, within ourselves, there's so much resource within ourselves that we can access and reframe that we can do by experiencing our inner experience. And so, just one more thing, that this body-based work has been so crucial, especially in helping to navigate the racial climate that we're in. As a brown woman myself, and working with people of color, women of color, leaders of color, it's been incredibly crucial to find a way to anchor in some form of healing as we navigate the uncertainty of our time. So I'll stop there and then allow my other colleagues here to share as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikita. Great to get to know you and glad to have you here. Ilene, are you ready to go next?
Sure. So I call myself a somatic detective. And for anyone who perhaps doesn't know, soma means body, and somatic means the body experienced from within. As a body worker, I use several different modalities.
Ilene, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Your video is off, and I would love to see you while you're introducing yourself.
What happened? There.
There you go. There you go. Great. Okay. I'm sorry. There you go.
So you could hear me though, right?
Yes.
So somatic means the body experienced from within. And as a body worker, I work primarily in craniosacral, biodynamic craniosacral therapy and polarity, both of which are anatomically based, but they also encompass the energetic anatomy, most simply as expressed by the chakras. And there's a quote I keep coming back to from Bessel van der Kolk, that the body keeps the score. And I find that thought a central piece of my work, how responses to stressful or unhealthy stimuli are absorbed and imprinted on our bodies without our awareness, remaining held there below consciousness. Untangling those imprints, integrating and awakening what pain, protection from pain has cut off, numbed, or disconnected, returns us to our wholeness in the present moment rather than being caught in an eternal past. And I think most of this audience would be in agreement with this concept. Though many here are mental health practitioners, a lot of psychotherapists and social workers whose point of entry is the mind, the mental constructs. Forgive my oversimplification on that, but my point of entry is the body. And so my most adept tools are my hands, which certainly have had to be re-educated this year. I rely on their sensitivity like a safecracker to feel subtleties. And the body speaks its own language. My role is to be fluent in that language. My purpose is bringing awareness to how those experiences manifest in the body, many of which may no longer serve. So for my clients, it's not merely a mental process, but truly a somatic experience, one I assist them in exploring. I believe awareness of what you carry in your body creates agency, and that agency allows you to realize your capacity to move towards health and well-being, which in turn builds resilience. And SC hones my ability to respectfully guide my clients in the process, giving me language and tools to assist my clients. And in these times of COVID, when touch is greeted with apprehension, that I can offer techniques to guide their awareness of the processes in their own bodies and how to self-regulate is beyond compare. And I'll leave it there.
Good stuff. I love it. I mean, we're all nodding. Everyone's in this. This is going to be such a great session. Everything that's already been said is so informative to us about why body-based practices already matter. Just getting to know you guys. Who do we get to know next? Dan, are you ready? I keep seeing you right there.
There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Rindler. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner and have been for about 15 years. And I have I have a split practice in a way, or that's how I used to describe it, but it's very much coming together in recent years, where I work about half my time with parents and babies, starting at just a couple weeks old and going through more or less the first year of life. And I have a program called We Grow Together, where I'm working with groups of parents with typically developing babies or with babies with concerns. It's a mix always. And I'm supporting those parents to realize their embodied role in their baby's development. That in their touch, in the way they move their baby, in something as simple as changing their diaper or picking them up, that they're transmitting ideas about movement, they're transmitting qualities of movement, and they're transmitting actually their emotional state, their state of their nervous system as well, and to bring awareness to it and to give them new ideas for how to explore that with their baby, and to realize how each of them is influencing the other, how they're reciprocally nurturing each other. So that's one side and then I do what's more typical for a Feldenkrais practitioner, which is that I work with adults one-on-one and in groups, where I'm again working with people who are just doing fine and want to do something better, but much more often I'm working with someone who's in chronic pain. And what was happening in my practice was that it began to mirror my own entryway into Feldenkrais method, that I began to get more and more people with some history of trauma or with a lot of anxiety who were having chronic symptoms that they related to the anxiety, the chronic physical symptoms that they related to their emotional state. So I was working with that to the best of my ability as a Feldenkrais practitioner and finding some real inroads that were helpful, but I came to SE to give me more of a vocabulary and really more of a comfort with working with a whole person in a way that honestly my training told me I had been trained to do, but I didn't feel that I was. And the things that I found as a Feldenkrais practitioner are absolutely the threads that I continue to work with in this year with people. That as when I began Feldenkrais method, I found with my own anxiety issues that I was going through at the time, that lessons that just helped me release, that just helped me get very loose or flexible, tended to leave me feeling lost, and that I wasn't looking or ready to let go in that way. And that instead the we call them lessons, the movement experiments, the explorations that brought me into myself in a way that felt centered were the ones that helped me feel how force traveled through my skeleton. So how I supported myself throughout from the that got me in touch with the ground, and how I was accessing support from the ground, and lessons that gave me like Ilene, I'm not saying your name right, you're gonna have to teach me, Ilene, but that Ilene was saying that it gave me a sense of agency. Yeah, and I loved that you said that. And those combined with new ideas that for me that I'm taking from SE have been what has guided me through guiding others to navigate this year as we all do our best to make it through. So I think that's enough for beginning. I do want to just say one more thing, which is that I have two kids on the other side of a door here, and there are going to be several times that I have to just pause because things happened and they're happening right now. So it's really good to meet you all. I'm going to walk away for 30 seconds because I don't have a choice, and I'll be right back.
We support your choice, Dan. Awesome. Thank you. It's already so significantly educational just to hear these thoughts. And I was really struck, like that's already such an inherently SE perspective. Like rather than saying, hey, we're going to do movement exercise so that you're in your body and you feel great. Like Dan just noticed, like, hey, if I'm not ready to let go, don't shove my body into another layer of trauma to work through it. And I think that's something inherently like built in when someone puts somatic experiencing in line with their body work. So we've got 2 more left. Which one of you lovelies would like to present yourselves to us next?
I'll
Go ahead.
volunteer.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ilene Selu, and my background is kind of a mixed bag. It started out, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a little over 20 years ago, and a friend recommended Reiki, which I thought was nuts, and I got on the Reiki table. And it was the first time I was able to make the connection between what was going on in my emotional life and what was happening in my body. And so that began a journey toward healing, and I became a Reiki practitioner. I studied Chinese medicine for a couple of years and really fell in love with the form of Qigong. And then I went on to do my PhD in somatic psychology. And I conducted a study with other people who have multiple sclerosis. And I wanted them to try out this dance therapy called authentic movement. But what I realized is that most of us with chronic illness also have a lot of childhood trauma. ACEs, our ACE scores are pretty high across the board for people who have chronic illness. And so those of us with chronic illness love dissociation. Dissociation is a great coping mechanism to deal with everyday chronic pain, fatigue, whatever your bizarre symptoms are. So I've developed a movement practice that helps people gently and slowly come into the body and then go back to dissociation. But what I wanted, my kind of personal life goal was to stay with my body. I'm dissociated quite a bit. I have daily pain and fatigue, but I also have a daily practice of Qigong, yoga, movement, dance. And this brings so much ease and grounding. And so what I've developed, I've taken the Qigong practice that I learned when I was a student, and I've adapted it for people with chronic illness. And I'm going to show you some things today. These are great practices to help people feel safe in their body, to feel more resourced, to kind of down-regulate when you're having anxiety. And I offer this class for free to anyone with a chronic illness on Zoom every Sunday afternoon, or most Sunday afternoons. And I'm developing more advanced classes so that people who have trouble being with their body and being in their body can eventually do authentic movement. And my own experience of authentic movement is that I've been able to communicate with symptom kind of in my active imagination, but also being present with my body and how my body wants to move. And this has led to, I believe, better health outcomes for me. And what I noticed in my study participants, they weren't always able to really communicate with symptom of their body because they didn't have dance or movement backgrounds. But their quality of life improved. They were able to have better conversations with their doctors about the medication they wanted to use. They pursued more movement meditation on their own. And so I'm really excited to offer this to everyone today. And I also want to say, oh my gosh, I love meeting all of you on this panel and hearing about your practices. I've got goosebumps and tears in my eyes listening to you and hearing other body people and their approach and how they use somatic experiencing. And I also do kind of traditional talk therapy, but always bringing body into the conversation with somatic experiencing. And thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
That's awesome. I think I'm feeling that. Anybody else feeling some awe and excitement to be here? This is great. I hope all of you on the attendee side, as you're hearing these, are already starting to generate questions. And a really fun question for this session would be like, hey, you and you, could you compare your therapies together? Like, let's get this gang in conversation. So as you're listening to them, be thinking about what you want to know, and maybe you've been thinking, oh, I want to know about Qigong, but also more about craniosacral. Maybe I am a craniotherapist, but I don't know, what I should do in regards to this or that. And what we just heard about dissociation. Fascinating. Like I'm trying to prime the pump here as we get going. You guys who are not on screen are part of the pump. We need you to start throwing us some questions. So as we start to get into the nitty gritty here, as we go through these introductions, and thanks Kay and Michelle for hanging on while Amie yammers. We need you. We need, like, you're part of this conversation too, to answer some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat when you guys are saying, how do I become a panelist, or do I introduce myself? These are the folks you're going to see on the screen today, and we'll bring you on screen to join us to ask a question or maybe to do an exercise with us when we utilize people's participation later. But if you'd like to be a panelist in a future event, like we're doing one on men's health in February and one on medical professionals in March, and if you have a background in that and want to be on it, we do have a speakers bureau, which if Danny could put a link to the speakers bureau in the Q&A, please copy that and go ahead and complete it for yourself. That's how I got to know some of these people. They reached out and they said, I have these great skill set. So if you're asking, how did they get on the screen with us? It's like, well, they shared with me their skill set and I got so excited to share them with you guys. So we'd love to share all of you. So I saw Michelle popped on for a moment. So applause. Thank you, Rebecca, behind the scenes. She's with the Institute. She's our tech guru. You can't see behind the scenes, but if everybody could be sending good vibes her way. She's trying to bring, we have a board of directors member, Michelle Soloway, who also has a body-based practice. We're working hard to try and get her on this session too. So I was saying that there's going to be 2 more introductions, but it seems like for now we have 1. So last but not least for the moment, please go ahead, Kay.
Thank you so much. And I am just so thrilled and honored to be here with every single one of the panelists and obviously every single one of you that's joining us here. My name is Kirsten. Some people call me Kay. And in my introduction, or in my little space there on my screen, you can see it says Dance Yoga Humanitarian. That took me a few minutes to try and figure that out because I was being asked, how I might define myself. And we also kind of started this conversation on Monday amongst the panelists. It was like, how do we address ourselves? And the other thing that I would say category I might fall into is a somatic witness. And by saying that is that my background is I'm the executive director and founder of Legacy Motion, which is a nonprofit organization. We used to be a cultural heritage nonprofit. We specialized in dance documentation and preservation. But now we've shifted our scope because of what I saw when I was over doing work in countries where people were really grabbing onto their wonderful, amazing traditions as coping skills and as coping mechanisms and these beautiful movement aspects that were happening for people. And then when those would actually start to go away or those would be lost, suddenly I was like, oh, there's something to this. There's something really important going on here with this innate wisdom that can come out for all of us in all places of the world when it comes to our bodies. And so now I would say the work that I do, we have programs all over the world. We do restorative movement-based practice programs in Colombia, Iraq, Venezuela, Honduras, you name it, I've probably been there. And we collaborate. So I would say that one of the most important things that I've noticed over this past year, and I can see it bleeding into 2021 right now, is collaboration. And not only collaboration, but connection. And not only connection, but sustainability. And so everything that my programs try and do, and all of the wonderful people that I work with and I learn from, we're really trying to create a sustainable process of ensuring that any type of movement-based modality, whether it be a dance class or a yoga class, or bringing in somebody who might have a somatic experience or practice, and making sure that we can make that sustainable to people who don't have access to it all the time. And so then they do have access to it all the time as another means for mental health, because there's just such a great need out there for all of us to be able to connect, to be able to collaborate, and to be able to make our mental health sustainable. And so that's sort of our big motto at It's Legacy Motion is just making sure that those three things are happening in all of our programs. And as for me, personally, I was a professional ballerina for many years. So I have lots of experience with moving bodies, not only my own, but teaching others. But I think one of the things that I also love to grab onto is that I know nothing. I know nothing about your coping mechanisms that you have. And with a lot of the populations and the people that I work with in the communities, they have these innate coping skills that are body-based. And so and I've noticed through SE, and I am a beginning student, I am really new to this language and really new to this world, which I am so thrilled to be a part of. But I've noticed with SE that there's this beautiful opening that can happen in a very, very careful and safe and titrated, right? There's that word, that SE word of titration, way that can start to happen when there's co-regulation, not only with me coming in as an outsider, which can be activating for myself and other people, but also starting to build that community and build those connections. And then once there's somebody who has that regulation, right, in those circumstances, then that co-regulation amongst the community starts to happen and the body changes and it starts to shift. And it's this beautiful thing that I've witnessed in so many places and within myself over the course of the many years that I've been sort of honing in and cultivating. And I really wanted to acknowledge everybody else's skills on this panel, because I feel also that we are, and I'll speak for myself, is that every skill that I learn is something else I can give. And so I'm actually learning Qigong right now, and I'm a TCTSY facilitator, and I'm learning other skills with mind-body practices and Laban notation and, Alexander technique. And basically I feel like if I can be a sponge, then when I go into a place and something isn't working, I can say, hang on, I can grab something else out of my tool belt. Maybe that will work. Maybe then also the community can teach me something that works for them. And we can work together to find a space that is actually connected and sustainable. So thank you so much for having me. And I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's so great to have you guys all here. I'm an SE student also. And this is just who you meet when you're in an SE program. Like, you come in the room and you're with all kinds of cool therapists who say, I know there's something beyond talk therapy. And then there's all kinds of like naturopath, acupuncturists, like all of these people who understand there's something really essential at the core of human healing. And that seems to be our body. At the core of what seems to be essential about our body is our nervous system. And so we are expanding our own capacity as students from the inside out. So, so exciting to have you guys here at all the different stages of your own practice and your learning. And there's a few questions coming up about this in the chat. So I want to put this to you guys in sort of broadly. They came up a lot around your practice specifically, Ilene, but people are asking, what about touch in COVID and distancing? And I know you're all having to deal with that. You're professionals, your practices got kind of slammed. We can imagine how you might be doing some classes online, but what could you share with us about how you've adapted your practices in these times of social distancing, which, by the way, Peter Levine makes very adamant we ought to be called physical distancing and not social. So I'm happy to not be socially distanced from y'all, but can you just chat amongst yourselves, share with each other what you've been finding as some techniques, if you wouldn't mind, or how you're dealing with that?
I like this gentle Qigong because there's a lot of self-touch, and even self-touch brings regulation. And with each class, I also give them acupuncture points and explain how these points help on a physical immune level and also on an emotional level. And so I'm really encouraging self-touch and giving them beyond the Qigong, which I'll teach you all if you little wonderful exercises to help you feel grounded and more in your body and more regulated. So you're getting the self-touch, and then with the acupuncture points, I'm teaching them acupressure to stay with the points to help a lot of these things. There's some wonderful points along just under the collarbone that you can press into to help with anxiety. There's some wonderful immune points on the legs and the arms. And this is one of my favorite, and I'm going to teach you all this in a little while, but yin tong is right here over the third eye. And it has some wonderful physiological reasons why it calms us down. It's right over that neocortex, and it's just above the eyebrows and between the eyebrows. And if you can just press on that and just notice, turn your attention inward as you press on this point. And notice if your breathing changes. Don't force the change in your breath, just noticing. And as you press on this point, notice what's happening in your lower body, in your belly, in your hips. And the settling. And notice your belly opening and relaxing. And then gently take the pressure off this point, yin tong. And you can take your fingers, and if you just want to follow me first, because your eyes will be covered, I'm going to start on the bridge of my nose. I have 2 fingers up on yin tong, the rest of the fingers on the bridge of my nose. I'm going to gently pull and imagine that I'm widening my focus, brushing my fingers over my temples, over my eyeballs, over my temples, back to my ears. And then just kind of fling your hands. And then 2 more times, starting at the bridge of your nose in yin tong. Gently pulling your fingers over your eyeballs, over your temples, back to the top of your ear, and just flinging. Nice. And 1 more time. And just noticing your breathing. And the last time that you fling your hands, just blow outward. Yeah, and just noticing any settling, any opening. Yeah.
Oh, warmth in the back of my head.
Feeling an opening? Yeah. So those are one of the ways I address the lack of touch, is finding those places on our body where ease is activated through self-touch.
I just wanted to make a comment. I love what you just did because it's free, right? Everybody, I have a feeling, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, but most of the things that we do, they don't require, they don't require an office. They don't require equipment. They don't require all of these things that might be hindering to people that don't have access. Because for me, I work in I work in refugee communities, and I work in a lot of different unconventional spaces. I'm sitting in a very unconventional space at the moment. And I just wanted to kind of highlight that a lot of these movement-based modalities, they're all free. And I just think it's incredible the more that we learn, and I'm learning so much already from everybody here, just how beneficial that is, and just to remind myself that each one of us has these different abilities to self-soothe that are available if we know what they are. And so, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, Kay, I think what's really a sort of an exceptional aspect that's happened with the pandemic is doing, what was the term, Amie, you said Peter Levine said to use? Not physical distance. Well, distance sessions. To be, I mean, I do in, one-on-one sessions in person, but, having to be very, the protocols, are sort of elaborate, and so can certainly see less people. But one thing that's, I find really kind of stunning in doing work with somebody like on Zoom is you're giving them the tools. So whereas when you're on the table with me, I'm more of an intermediary. But when you have to do the work, when you have to bring your own awareness into your body without my assistance, without my physical assistance, it gives you more agency, more ownership of the whole experience. And I think that ultimately that's the goal of all the work, right? Is not to keep someone, linked to you, but, to have them be able to self-regulate on their own.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. If I may jump in just to piggyback off of that, a lot of the work that I've been doing has been to support educators. So as we know, right now, our teachers are our first responders, and they have been really challenged with all of the, being present on Zoom, having their own children go through Zoom classes while they're trying to teach, and, trying to get engagement from their students. So that big piece of connection is really missing right now. And so, and connection starts with self, and then we can translate it to other. So in my role, as somebody who really wants to help the healer, because we must be well ourselves and have a grounding ourselves in order to be of service to others. And as healers and helpers, we often forget that. You think about school teachers, they are always putting others first instead of themselves. So it's been really fantastic. As some of us here already mentioned, that the pandemic has really given us an opportunity, if we could frame it in that way, to focus on our self-care and to focus on what is it that's going to allow us to navigate this time. So in my work with educators, it's been about teaching them, how do you find embodiment through your own agency and through things that you can do, and that you have choice, and you have choice in every moment. And you don't need to stop and go to a different space, or you don't even need more time per se. But if you can, what I like to call loop your awareness internally, externally, back inward, external, throughout the day, we can find greater ability to regulate. So for example, one of the practices I often share in this environment where we're not able to hug one another, and so many folks live alone. And so the isolation and the depression around that has significantly increased. But it's given us an opportunity to find some home and relationship with our bodies. So that self-touch piece. So self-touch can look like self-massage. And so that's something that I will often guide folks to, or even the self-hold practice that you find in somatic experiencing. So I'm wondering if maybe now might be a good time to do that. If you all are willing to do that with me, that we have so much aliveness in our body, and we're in a society where we don't.
Nikita, just hang on for just a second. Guys, Nikita's going to be explaining something, but what I'd love to do is bring a couple of you guys on screen with us. She's about to guide us through. We all just went through this very fun, cool exercise. I know you were doing that at home. Two of you have already raised your hand. Raise your hand. We're just going to bring about, between 5 or 10 of you on screen. Nikita, you can keep talking. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay. No, thank you. No,
we'll bring a few other people on screen and go ahead and lead us through a little something. And as she does lead us through, I also want to bring your attention to the fact that this is a free program. So all of you are already putting in questions, and there's a ton of them. So I know we need to do more body-based, but this is a free program. but we are really completely funded by your donations as a nonprofit charitable organization trying to provide resources in this time. So sorry, guys, this is your NPR little break. I need to plug traumahealing.org/SECC. Traumahealing.org/SECC is where you can go donate $2.67, the cost of a cup of coffee in 1982, to the Trauma Institute. You could also take out your phone and you could to 26989, the number, if you type in 26989, I know it's weird, just 5 numbers, text support SE, all as one word. You could donate from your phone. Oh, cool. Here comes everyone. But you could also just make a little donation. If I can tell my executive director that I got everybody online to donate $5, that this was worth it to you to donate $5, we will just keep pumping these out for you and getting you more resources. We're about to jump into the part, we're going to do a ton of exercises. In fact, after Nikita's, let's just go through and I'll do a ton of exercises. But hold in mind that the question coming up online is people are saying, how do I still earn a living while doing touch and body work in these times? So keep that in mind. Keep sharing that as a resource as well as your skill set, if you don't mind. We're just throwing everything in the soup pot here. All right.
Awesome,
Enough for me.
Amie,
Go ahead, Nikita, lead us.
Yeah. So I was saying that we're in a society that doesn't permit self-touch. We have so much shame around touch, and now COVID has all kinds of rules around touch. I don't know if I go see a friend, like I'm pretty much socially distant, physically distanced, but you know, on occasion I'll see somebody and it's like, oh, can I hug them? Can I not? So we have even more rules around what touch can look like. So, you know, I think that if we can use this time to really understand what is touch, what's the value that it brings to our bodies, and how can we regulate ourselves through this work, it can, you know, just help us to launch into a greater space of healing so that we can be ready for whatever is coming next. So thank you all for participating with me right now. I'm going to invite us to come present in our bodies. And so that can look like, you know, many different ways, but I love to anchor our awareness in our breathing. And so if you can start to notice the rhythm of your natural breath, and notice the gentle inhale and exhale as they flow in and out of your body. You're welcome to close the eyes if that feels comfortable for you. You may want to open them as I guide what this activity is. And so as we slow down our breath, I invite us to enter into our body to the degree that feels comfortable for you. And we'll start with a self-hold practice that we find in SE work. It's a 5-part practice. If you have access to both of your hands, we'll be using both of our hands. If you don't have access to your hands, a couple of ways. You can visualize placing your hands at these different parts of your body, or you can simply stay with your breathing. So I'm going to invite us to place our hands around our head, with the base of your palms right above your ears and the fingertips wrapping over the crown of the head. This is a wonderful practice for those of us who have been worried, who've had a lot of anxious thoughts, how are we going to financially sustain ourselves? What about our health? What about our family members? This is wonderful for racing minds, worrisome thoughts, perfectionistic thinking. And we just wrap our hands around this precious organ of the brain and breathe. And feel the warmth and connection between your two hands. Allow the breath to slow in a way that's comfortable for your body. And from here, so if this feels really yummy for you to stay right here with your hands, you can stay here for as long as you'd like. We'll then shift the hands, one hand over the forehead, one hand behind the head. Feel the support of your hands here, and you can lean back. Allow your body to just ever so slightly lean back into the hand that's supporting you. Know that you are supported by the ground beneath you, by the space around you. And we'll continue moving the hand that's on the forehead right over the heart. Now feeling the connection between the two hands. In this practice, the hands are placed over giant nerve bundles in the body. So the brain is the biggest bundle of nerves, a very simplistic way of representing that. And now the hand is over the heart, which actually regulates the brain. And from here, especially if your hands are getting tired, take care of your needs to rest. We'll bring the hand that's back of the head over your belly button now. I'm going to tilt my screen so you can maybe see a little bit better. And feel the essence of this hug. This is like a self-hug. Holding the most precious part of our body, the torso, where we have our most vulnerabilities. Our organs are here. And so feeling the breath, allowing the body to be more present. And then from here, I'm going to invite you to place the hand that's over the heart now back behind the head so we complete the circuit here. Feel the connection between your belly and the back of your head, or the solar plexus and the brain. And when you feel complete, again, you may want to go back to any of those spots that we held as it feels good to you. And when you're ready, you can release the hands down, just being here in a neutral, more neutral position for a moment. And notice the sensations that are moving inside of you. And I'll just conclude with one more piece of self-touch. We can take our hands, and one powerful place, when we experience the frustration of our political landscape, the racial trauma, the stress of COVID, and all that has been challenging in the year, we lodge our emotions in our body. And if we don't allow them to discharge, they live inside of us. So I found that one place that we often hold emotional tension, frustration, anger, fear is in our jaw. And so there are a couple of points, actually, let me move my screen back up. A couple of points here on the jaw, right where the mandible connects, the upper and the lower jaw connect. And you might just do a little gentle massage. So it's incredibly important to move slowly here and bring a very gentle touch. You might feel a little bump there, or it might feel, whoa, very intense, or you might feel a release of sensation. So know that we can always come back to this place here and open the mouth a little bit, relaxing the breath, and see what that touch feels like. And you can apply pressure harder or softer as it feels right for you. And so I'm going to conclude our practice. You can maintain that wonderful massage for as long as you'd like. And when you're ready, you can release the hands. And so I'm going to conclude our practice there. Thank you all so much for practicing. That's a 5-step self-hold. You can take any piece of that. And so to translate this into our active engagement spaces, like when I work with teachers, if they find themselves dysregulated when trying to manage students, just a simple hand over heart and breathing, looping the awareness inward to remind ourselves that, I'm safe, I'm enough, I'm okay. And this, I can be present in this moment, is so powerful, and we can do it at any time. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Nikita, thanks, and much acknowledgement for all of you guys for coming on screen. It's really nice to see you here with us. And I know some of you have been asking questions in the Q&A. See William's got some cool ones in there, and everyone's asking for more cool things to do with other people in this time, how to support family members, things like that. Are we starting to see? That's what today's session is, man. Like let's just keep sharing and caring. And so thank you this round for y'all being on. And we're going to send you back over to the other side if you don't mind. And we'll call back some other people. But thank you very much for doing this exercise with us. Awesome. Who else of the panelists who are on have something that they'd like to add to that, or some other thought on your mind and heart.
Hey, so I'll jump in for a moment. That was great, first of all. And if I do another one of these panels, I think I'm going to be using some of the techniques I've learned just now before I get on the call, because I feel really good right now. I was thinking about the question Amie put forwards about how do we practice body work when we can't touch someone's body, right? So I am working fully remote right now from my bedroom, not in my office, because I have kids at home who are doing virtual school. And when this began, while I was worried about how many people would stick with me, I knew that I had something to offer online. And I felt that my method, that Feldenkrais method, really is so well suited to this, and is something that other modalities could just take a page from what we do without doing this method. Because all along, for 15 years now, I've said I'm not a body worker, I'm not a healer even. I'm helping people to learn. I think of myself as a somatic educator. Yeah, that I'm helping people to learn through my touch, and through when I'm working with groups, especially through my describing movements for them to try to explore, and to become more aware of their bodies, and then to use that awareness of their body to begin to find new possibilities for movement, and then to sense in new possibilities for movement all the other aspects of along with sensation that come up of emotion and thoughts, and etc. So I felt ready, but what I realized pretty quickly was that I was working with much less information than I was used to. And I did some early Zoom sessions where I overloaded my clients, because I was saying, oh, I think your right shoulder is a little higher than your left, and I think this is a little than that, but am I right? Because it's a little hard to tell, and now you're frozen, and we have to wait for the link to work again, or right. And I kind of frazzled some people and myself, because I was trying to, without realizing it till later, and thinking it through, and having one very helpful client write me and say, you know what, that wasn't so good. She's still with me, by the way. I have to, for my own ego, say. But I had to get used to working with a different amount of information, because I couldn't feel what was happening in my hands, and a lot of what I'm doing with my touch and what I can see is trying to prove myself wrong a lot of the time. All right, I see this, and now I'm going to work with touch a little and see if that's what's happening, and I'm going to assume that I am not trusting my first instinct, although I'm retaining it, so that I can verify and see what I find. And it's like a detective work. So so I had to go with a lot less information. But what I found was that while very occasionally there were clients where I really missed the touch, like someone who was in extreme pain and just wasn't able to do a lot of directed movement, for most of my clients, not only did I have enough, but I could even work when Zoom connections were terrible, and I was seeing this impressionistic, pixelated, almost, Minecraft-like, just for those of you who do have kids, image of my client, that I still had enough information to work with them, to sense into their body more clearly on a personalized level, not in the way that I'm able to do with a group, like when I eventually get to an exercise here, but that there was enough. But that was my first shift, was that I realized I had to go with less information and adjust to that. The second part was that I realized that I was relying on my touch for my clients in ways that they didn't need. That there were many moments that actually asking my clients to notice something about themselves earlier on in a session than I would have done I mean, I know not everyone knows what Feldenkrais even is, but my sessions would usually start with me spending about a third of the session looking to help the person release some of their habitual patterns of holding, so that then they were able to sense hopefully less pain and feel their body more clearly, and then use that awareness to start to find a new pattern of possibility. And so that first 20 minutes wasn't available in the same way anymore, but that my clients were ready in many ways to do much more. And I could do some guided movement, or something that I learned from SE, although it's not SE specific, it was to use virtual touch and to say, okay, I have my hand on your, humor me because you'll think this is weird, but that's me to my client. You guys probably think it's great. But I have my hand on your back in between your shoulder blades, and I'm just coming to meet your spine. What I can feel, above your shirt, and can you imagine that you feel the support of my hand? I'm just meeting you there. I'm not imposing. I'm not pushing. And
like we could try that right now with you. Like we could
yeah.
just let.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't planning on going farther
so many
with that, but I could.
In there, like tons of co-regulation things, and how do I do touch work? In fact, I'm starting to see, oh my gosh, there's way more questions than we're going to be able to get to today, so I'm getting a little nervous. But why don't you go ahead and do that with us? Like, why don't a few of us experience what it is you have us experience? If someone wants to come on screen while Dan's talking, and
sure,
it'd be great. Yeah, go ahead and raise your hand if you haven't been on screen yet, and we'll bring you over. And Dan, you can keep going.
Okay. So imagining that I have my hand on your back in between your shoulder blades, if that's okay. And that perhaps you feel the warmth of my hand, and I'm just simply meeting your spine where it is. I'm not pushing forwards, but in fact, you can control the amount of pressure that I bring to your back, so that it's just the right amount for you to feel well supported in this place that for many of us can be easy to lose track of. And as I imagine that I have my hand on you, I notice my breathing shifted and lowered. You see what you notice about your breathing. And see if you're in a chair, if having my hand here, does it bring you any different awareness of your ability to expand backwards with the breath? That you don't have to force it, you don't make it happen, but that as you breathe in, you imagine that my hand is there, or sense my hand is there, to give you a little bit of resistance, in the best form of the word, to work with, so that you can find how to expand in a more 360-degree way, and find that way to expand your back as you breathe in. And then where would you also like support? Maybe it would be great if my hand came down a little bit, or if my hand came up a little bit. And so you can move my hand to the next place along your spine where there might be some more support to be found. Notice your breathing. And without trying to force or push or impose, see if you can breathe into my hand in this place. See what it's like if you reduce, excuse me, if you reduce the effort of breathing by 10%. Can you soften your breathing by 10% and still find that you can expand into this shape that you're playing with right now? And then maybe you bring my hand an inch up or an inch down from that place, or a few inches. You find what works for you. And in that next place, there's that gentle support coming at the pressure that you'd like. And notice your breathing. Yeah. And as you notice some capacity to breathe into these places along your back, see if there's a secondary noticing. See if you already begun to just, there's something else that's come along. Right? Maybe it's a second place in the body that you became aware of something opening, or it could be something tightening. It could be positive or negative, and that would be something next to work with. Or maybe a thought came up, or a feeling, or just noticing what's happening around the edges of the work that we're doing. What are some of the other dimensions? And then maybe play with just one more place of bringing my hand. If it's been working down your back, maybe it's somewhere in your lower back now. And breathing into that place without forcing, without imposing, with an attitude of curiosity. What can I find here? Not what can I fix here? We're so conditioned for that. Well, let's make this part right. But actually, there's so much to be gained by going in with this attitude of exploration and noticing your breathing here, and noticing those secondary and tertiary, I guess it is, noticings of other areas of the body that have become more apparent to you, or that have shifted in some way, or what else is coming up for you in some other dimension. Good. And open your eyes and breathe simply. And notice your sense of length of your spine, your ability to expand in possibly many directions without pushing the breath. What does that do for the feeling of lightness or heaviness of your head on top of your spine? And maybe it's a good moment to shift from your internal sensations to coming towards the visual and noticing what you see. Yeah. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, every massage therapist in the country, like, knew they could do virtual massage. You know, it's tricky because, like, a lot of bodywork practitioners, energy workers, like, are not about being verbal. But, like, you know, I've got a hypnosis recording this year on how to get it was a 20-minute massage. And I was like, I just need a massage. So I got a hypnosis, and it was really powerful. And I just had the experience with you right now. Did you guys also, that it was like, so in beginning of the year, we learned SciBAM, right? Sensation, image, behavior, affect, memory, and how powerful just the image of touch. I mean, I just was really struck. The image of touch, I was able to conjure in a combination of memory and affect and sensation. Just gave me I got a little spine massage. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Any of the visitors online want to say anything about how that was for you?
No.
Right,
maybe while they think about it or not, then I'll throw in a thought about what you just said, Amie. That that's that piece that I think, even though what I just did with you is not standard issue Feldenkrais in any way, shape, or form, it's certainly influenced by it, and I think the part that comes out of my training and that other modalities could bring to bear is that that we're not that even when we do massage, and many people may need to correct me for oversimplifying, but there's a general thought of I am doing something or taking care of something in them. But maybe actually, but I'm sure this is in the massage world too, which I am not, but I'm sure there's some thinking about what are we eliciting in the in the body and mind of the person that we're touching. That how much of it is about what we're doing with the muscle and how much of it is actually a shift in their awareness of their body, right? Because as my shoulders are creeping up, if I think that my partner is going to come and give me a shoulder massage, before she's there, my shoulders are changing. Yeah, and that a lot of the touch is about what's happening, is about what it's helping us elicit in us, the client. Yeah.
I love, Dan, what you go ahead, Emma.
I'm going to send the other I'm going to send you guys back to the other side. We've got about 15 minutes left. Time is really flying, and the Q&A is actually full of amazing questions. I'm going to send you guys back to the other side. Thank you. Eileen, if you could go ahead and answer and respond, because I think there's a lot of questions for you about how are you using your hands? What are you doing? And so we're getting there, but I want each of you to be able to lead us in something. So if everybody else, if anyone else wants to come on screen for another activity, raise your little blue hand, which by the way is probably not a blue hand on your screen, but you hit raise hand and we see your names and we'll bring over another set of people. Eileen, if you want to lead us through something, you have some thoughts on that.
I mean, I think it is that, these are my tools. And during COVID, right? Like, it's like my hands have been cut off. But what one realizes, what I sort of said before, is by having to work remotely, you're able to give your clients the tools to be self-reliant. So whereas, I'll put my hand, over your heart and bring your awareness there, and my touch, my presence aids that. But so you become more embodied. And I love that term you used, Dan, about being a somatic educator, because I think that's so much of what one needs to be. And what I find is there's the issue with doing remote as a body worker is getting into movement. So actually what I'd like to do is, now a lot of my practice comes out of Polarity, which is an energy-based work. So actually, this is the super simple energy exercise, like the first thing most people learn. And I'll just, as you bring people on, let me just kind of show this. This is sort of a precursor. But just rub your hands.
But I want you to come on with us. We want to see you.
So just rub your hands together really fast and build up some heat. When you really feel it, and then just bring them apart very slightly. And I'm imagining everybody's noticed like this little, everyone will have a different way of explaining it, but a little sense of a prickliness. And if you pull your hands a little bit more apart, that's it's an electromagnetic field that you created. That's the energy around your body. And if you had somebody with you, I'd say turn your hands to them and create the fields. So actually here's the thing, so try see what happens. Do you feel, can that work? Come right up to your hands, Amie. All right, and just feel that field. I mean, I get, a pull. And shake that out. So that's not actually the exercise that I was going to do. So when trying to get people working remotely to get into their bodies, so I like to do movement, and Polarity has this great yoga thing. So it's very simple, and we're just going to kind of move in all the directions. So first, you want to just kind of swing like north to south and let like your leg kind of bend in. And you're just going to twist, and you can let it get bigger, and let like your foot come up off the ground. And I want you to add sound. And so it's like, ha, 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 ha. And then shake it out. I have a teacher who would say we're all sound constipated. And so it starts, right? And so now just bouncing on your toes just a little bit. And you start feeling like all the energy waking up and moving. And so, and so I want you to rock up on your toes and drop your heels. Come up on your toes and drop your heels. Up on your toes and drop your heels. Do that. Okay. And now you spread your legs, and this is, see if you can make it a little easier. I don't have the right setup for that, but so you're going to come down into what we call pyramid. So your legs are apart, your hands are on your thighs, and you're going to turn to one, and you're going to again use your breath and go, ha! And twist to the other side, ha! And you're like going down deep, ha! I can't hear anybody, so get loud, ha! 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 And then just let your body hang. And you're going to roll up, patting your arms, your chest, the sides of your body, the backs of your legs. And hopefully feel more embodied.
Awesome. Thank you. I was craving some movement. That was nice. What do you think, Tia? That's good?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually.
Yeah. I found there was something about that percussion on the body that felt, it's like I could be moving, but actually, yeah, all this is cool. Thanks for jumping on. People are getting shyer to jump on, and someone else jumped on and jumped off, and I think I made it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cool. So we're getting towards the end of time. Can you believe it already? But here's the thing. I have, so far we have one person who's donated, and we have over 500 people signed up, and over 270 unique visitors have been here. So if you guys could please go to those donate links. And if you're wondering where, I know Danny's put it in that chat in the Q&A area a little bit. And maybe we'll even put it, we'll just put a link in the chat too. We ask you to don't get in there and start chatting a lot because it'll pop up, but it's www.traumahealing.org/SECC. That will take you to the donate page, and I would love if you would just give us a couple of dollars, $1.67, the cost of a cup of coffee in 1952. Would be great. It would signal us that you want more of this. Here's what I'm already knowing. I'm looking at your Q&A. I see a ton of you have really great questions. You guys, people are asking about Resmaa Menakem's work and like sort of embodied white supremacy, which I know this group has some really cool things to say about. We talked about it on Monday. But we're talking with Nikita about this in the LA school district in a big way. We were talking about working with able-bodied and different levels of embodiment, and there's just so many cool questions. So I think we need to do more around body-based practices specifically, and I don't want to say less people on the line because I know each person here has activities to share, but I know we all have more. So there's a lot of thanks for the validations about disassociation. People have asked about books. So I wonder if we could just now share if you guys have any other ways you'd like people to know about you. What I want to share is that when we're done with this, we will have the recording and we will post it on our webpage at traumahealing.org/conversations, where you can see a 6-part series we did with faculty members in the beginning of SE. These are students and current practitioners, so we all come in at different levels of what we have to contribute. And yet I think we have so much to learn from each other. That is the definition of community in my book, is a space where we can learn together in collaborative sharing. So we're doing it. So you can go to traumahealing.org/conversations or our YouTube channel. There is a Somatic Experiencing YouTube channel where this will be posted. And on the YouTube channel underneath here, a bio of each person who's here will be there. A link to their webpage or their email or how to get in touch with them about their services will be there, as well as a link to donate, because, you know, I'm your NPR host for the day asking you to please donate to the SE Trauma Institute. We need you. And that was my tiger impersonation. I can't believe I've done these too many times online. I have no more shame. Guess that's a good thing. So that said, I'm trying to see if there's people asking for books and resources. So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna sweep that one real large and say anything by Dr. Peter Levine. I think we'd all probably get behind. Waking the Tiger was his first. If you're asking about books with children, which I see there's some questions in there about kids and family, Maggie Klein has written some books to which Peter has done intros on around children and trauma proofing your kid. Oh, I see Denise already wrote in about that. Cool. Kathy Kane and Dave Berger. Yeah, there it is. Kathy Kane and Dave Berger in like the advanced, when you're in the advanced courses of SE, you start to learn touch work and they're mind boggling. They also have some different methods around touch. So there's a lot. People who want to become a student are asking about teaching versus Zoom versus in person. You know, I think we're all experimenting with that. I'm personally taking it on Zoom right now. Are you guys as students, have you each taken some Zoom? I was surprised how good the SE training was on Zoom. Like, you know, look at these are like big emphatic faces. I was like, I missed getting to be with everyone and kind of hug and touch. But, you know, when you're in a room of people, it's sort of awkward anyway. So there was something different about being in my jammies for an SE class. And they were very good. In fact, there's 8 classes going on this weekend, just to give you guys a sense of how much we do at the Institute. So if you want to donate, that'd be great. Anyway, let's do one more. It's like 28 after. We're supposed to end at 30. I know people have to drop off the line. You've done other things. But if you guys want to stay on for another 15 minutes, I know that folks here may have planned some more exercises you'd like to lead us on. I think we have some movement. I feel like this, of all things, we need to wrap up with a dance at the end. So, you know, everybody should be gearing up to raise your blue hands to come on screen and dance with us. But why don't we go for another 15 minutes if the panelists are up? If any panelist has to go, we understand and we will certainly acknowledge you and no pressure. But if you can stay for another 15, the Q&A is really full of great things. And that people are asking about, are you seeing people in person? How do you make sure your programs are sustainable? Good things about informed consent for coaching versus licensed professionals. I think you guys as bodywork professionals have probably had some interesting thoughts about that. Teaching across state lines as bodywork professionals over online is what's there. And yeah, so I will share the whole list of Q&A with you guys afterwards if you want to email people, but go ahead, Nikita, I've talked too much.
Okay, thanks, Amie. You know, there was a question that came up in the chat box that I was wondering if I could address. It was right after the practice that I led, which somebody asked, it's called self-hold practice, and it's a 5-step, and I believe there's 2 different types of practices you can do. But someone asked, you know, when we were holding the hand at the head, some of those squeezing motions may be triggering for some people. For example, squeezing head may conjure up images of George Floyd's head being squeezed. So how do you prevent triggering when doing this in a group setting where you don't know everybody's history? And I think that's such an important question because trauma looks like all kinds of ways. And the memory of trauma can be triggered by things that we can anticipate and that we can't anticipate. So I think it's so important as facilitators to be invitational in our language and to cover as many bases as we can. So in my share with you all, you may have noticed, I talked about accessibility. If you have access to your hands, if you don't, then you can visualize. So that was really for folks who may not, be impaired in a hand, may not have access, whatever that is. But even in this example, it's so, so valuable. And as a facilitator, I may not be able to address all of the possible forms of trauma that a body movement may bring up. But I think it's also important to, reclaim that this is our body, and our body has certain limited range of movements that, a gesture like this can mean a lot of different things. And so how can we reclaim, our own bodies for ourselves? And so for that self-hold, it was a holding movement. So we can invite, if it feels comfortable for you, lighten your touch, breathe in a way that's comfortable for you. If it doesn't feel good to you, do something else. So always giving people choice with their body, I think, can be a really supportive way of creating safety in a space, so that then we can start to work through some of the more traumatic elements of what a practice may bring up in somebody. So just wanted to share that piece.
And thank you so much, Nikita, for bringing that up. And I just wanted to kind of like jump in really quick, because ultimately what I'm really hearing a lot of us talk about is empowerment. And empowerment, when I'm working with survivors of trauma, and they might be survivors. I mean, I work with a lot of complex trauma. I work with survivors of torture. I work with people who have, are fleeing war. Like these are immediate first aid trauma needs. And so really what it comes down to, and I also kind of heard that question about sustainability and how do you make a program sustainable? It's about empowerment, because most of the time when we experience trauma, that's when our choices are taken away from us. That is trauma, right? Our choices are taken away in whatever way, shape, or form that is. And so if we can start to reintroduce those choices back into the body, and that feeling of relative safety back into the body, and this feeling of ease, maybe even momentarily, we're talking about empowerment. And so if we're able to do that, for example, the way that I've been doing this during COVID, I can't be with my communities right now, and my communities can't isolate. It's really hard to isolate in certain areas of the world, and it's not an option. And so without that isolation, right, there is a lot of complication when it comes to what's been happening with this pandemic. But what I've noticed is that I've been able to talk to my collaborators and my colleagues who are there with them already, right, with the community that I can't be with because I can't travel there, or they won't let me in because of, all the COVID safety and those types of things. And so to be able to talk to them via Zoom or via on the phone or whatever it is, and then hopefully empower them to start to learn some of these modalities and be able to pass that along, because they're already in that community. And there is that empowerment that I think is really important. And right now, that's been sort of the way that I've found sustainability, is my ability to then empower others to do exactly what they know how to do already, but to give them that regulation in this form, to be like, you got this, we can do this together, even though I'm not there. And because I won't be there, I can't be in 50 places at one time. And I usually go in, and unfortunately I have to leave. And so how do I, how can I facilitate that empowerment when it's not about me? It's about their empowerment and their ability. And they already have that ability. It's innate. It's just sometimes being able to be that person walking that path with them in order to just support. And I say just, which is not really a word I like to use, but to support, to really support. And so, so thank you for bringing that up, Nikita. I really appreciate that. And it's all about empowerment and choice. Yeah. So hopefully I answered that question. Just thank you.
That was really spot on. I've only been in one refugee camp in my life, and that was in Matamoros, Mexico. I really get what you're saying, when they were all on a football field and tents together, crammed on each other. And we were there in March, right when it was like, wait, how do we make a morgue tent? How do we make a respirator tent? And just thinking, if anybody here gets it, no one can isolate. So there's been some questions about facilitating this in groups and sort of an equitable facilitation in groups. And so I really love a couple of you guys really work with groups, and I think that's so powerful. Okay, how about we be the next group you work with? You want to lead us in some movement?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
I need a group of you to raise your hand. Okay, let me put it this way. None of you want to come on screen. Here's fresh. If you think working with refugee camps around the world is an important thing, and if you think equitable treatment of humans as they do in body work is important, raise your hand, and then I will quickly grab you and put you on screen with us. I know this is supposed to be all about choice, but thanks.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much for everybody that's joining, whether you're on the screen or off the screen. and as people kind of pop in. So I'm seated right now. You can be seated for this particular movement experience in a chair if that's accessible for you, or on the floor if that's accessible for you. It's really up to you. And so you can see that I move around a lot. So I tend to rock at first to kind of see where I am and just see where my sits bones are and kind of see what my body is needing to do. So if you feel like rocking might be something that could facilitate you, the invitation is to do so. And everything that we'll be doing in this short practice is invitational. And I just want to say that and reiterate that. So if anything feels overwhelming, you notice that a sense of dis-ease starts to come up in you, please resource and do whatever you need to do in order to bring yourself back to a point of ease, or whatever that might mean to you as well. And the invitation, firstly, is to, if you want to, perhaps look away from your screen. And maybe you continue to rock, or perhaps maybe your rocking comes to a stop, or it's slower or faster. But the invitation is to look around your space. So maybe look away from your screen and notice if your eyes fall on something that brings you a little bit of ease or a little bit of joy, or any other maybe regulating or resourcing that might come from something in your space with this little bit of movement that might be happening in your body. And when you're ready, if you want to, you can continue to look around your space, or you can bring your eyes back to the screen if you're a visual learner, or you can listen to my voice, or maybe both. And as you rock back and forth, the invitation is to maybe start to stretch your arms up, if that's accessible to you, or out. And your stretching might actually be quite large. I'm a large mover, but you don't need to follow what I'm doing. The invitation is to, maybe your stretching is closer in. Maybe it's smaller, or maybe it's large. Maybe it's big movement. Maybe start to stretch a little bit. Again, if it's accessible to you, or it feels like it's facilitating you at this moment. And maybe dropping, if you have both your arms up, maybe dropping one arm and reaching to one side. And again, maybe that's a little bit more close in for you. Maybe self-touch right here might be helpful. Whatever's accessible. And whenever you're ready, maybe shifting to the other side. Maybe you do the same thing, or maybe you do something different. And again, your stretching might look similar to mine, or it might look different. All is welcome here. And maybe as you reach up and over, rocking back to your first side, if you did both sides, starting to curve your chin into your chest and then rounding your spine. And again, this might look a lot smaller or feel a lot smaller. It'd be a lot more internal. And then finding your way to the opposite side. And maybe it's just a simple rounding of the shoulders, or a small rounding of the shoulders, or maybe it's actually you're concaving your entire chest. You decide. You can explore this movement of rounding forward and then stretching to one side, going back and forth if you want to. Maybe rounding your head forward, letting it rock forward. If this is feeling like it's facilitating to you right now, by all means, continue to explore this movement. But if you're curious and want to explore something a little bit different, as you reach to one side, maybe start to open up and look up towards the upper part of your space, and then rounding your spine back. So for some people, this might feel really, really good, or it might feel really regulating to open up the heart. And for others, it might be smaller, or you might stay more concaved in. Maybe this feels safer. You decide. If you feel like trying one or the other, or maybe both, it's your choice. And you can pick your pace here, and you can pick how big of a movement, and I know it looks like I'm doing really big movements, and that's just the way that I move. If your movements are smaller, by all means, find your own range where you are right now today. No expectation. You can always switch directions as well if you want to. Finding your own pace and your own duration. Maybe it feels really fun to go a little bit more quickly in this opening, or maybe you want to linger somewhere. Maybe lingering in a different shape. And whatever you're doing in this moment, whatever movement you've decided to explore here, take a few breaths. Maybe they link up with your movement, maybe they don't. And whenever you're ready, the invitation is to gradually come back to stillness. Try not to stop abruptly. Try and strive to come to a place of stillness gradually within the movement range that you have explored for yourself. Once you've found that stillness, it might take a few moments. Please take your time. The invitation is to do whatever else you need to do here, whatever movements. And once you've found that stillness, the invitation, if you want to, you can close your eyes. If that doesn't feel like it might be helpful, please leave them open. And take a moment to check in. Does your body feel different, or does it feel the same? Noticing anything in your breath or anything in any other part of your body that might be feeling something new or something that feels familiar. And then whenever you're ready, the invitation is to take an inhale through your nose, if you want to, and an exhale through your mouth, opening the mouth up. Coming back into your space, into your screen in your own time. Thank you so much for moving with me. Such a joy. Thank you.
Did anyone else enjoy how all of us who were on screen, so I imagine there's still well over 100 people with us, and then now we're going overtime, like at home, like all that permission to find exactly what it was right for us. Like it didn't look like a Pilates class. Like no one was yet like, do this now. Like it was just like, so it was as individual as each of us. And so liberating in this era of constriction to just be. I really enjoyed, I don't know if anyone else said, like, I'm kind of a big personality, right? Like I throw it all out there. And when you start saying, you know, you can go as big as small, I started experimenting with not having to be that. And I felt a really different experience. Same as when a few of you earlier mentioned touching yourself gently. And I was like, oh yeah, it was like going at the hard massage, like gentle and small. Like it's just that's what somatic educators do. They like give us access to ourselves again. It's like, I know this stuff. I study this stuff. And like, I'm still, until another says it to you, you know, we need each other so much right now. Thank you. Anyone else have a comment about that one? You can raise your actual hand if you want. Beth, go ahead.
That was lovely. It made me yawn. I could feel my weight pouring from one side to the other, and it just helps me settle. And seeing other people in their own skin and exploring, I find that inherently co-regulatory and gives me permission. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had a similar response as Amie in terms of I'm used to doing things big, like doing big for myself and big for others. And so it was interesting to be prompted to try it at different levels of intensity. And I've done activities before where the activity was exploring different levels of intensity, but I haven't seen it where we're told we can do it that way.
So permissive. So like David Emerson, trauma center, trauma sensitive yoga, like everything was an invitation and it didn't feel weird that you were like, if you want to do this, you can. And otherwise you don't. It's so lovely. Well, here's an invitation. Those of you who are on screen can currently stay on screen. We're at time, which stinks because I don't want to be at time with this group. Like, this is so much fun. Like, this is, people are like, why do you do what you do so intensely? I'm like, because this is how I play with my friends. Like, this is all I want to do. You guys are amazing. Every attendee on here is so cool. Like that you guys showed up in the way. The questions are so full. I'm going to dump those Q&As. We're going to put them in a sheet and I'm going to give them to all of you guys who are panelists in case you want to follow up and answer some because they were directly to each of you. But I think we need to really get embodied together and shake it out. There's no invitation. Again, why am I so bossy? I want everyone to come on screen right now. Once I'm done with my SE training, maybe I won't be like that. But I think we should have a little dance out to end this session. Anyone else? Yeah. Raise your hand if you're up for it. And we will start bringing you over. And the song we're going to play is going to be in honor of Peter and the Waking the Tiger, and the tiger is a big part of the SE story. And if you don't know why, read Waking the Tiger and you know it, or any book that Peter's written and there's a story about the tiger, you'll find out. Let me see if I can handle some tech. Anybody want to say anything in closing before we just dance it out? Aside from, oh my gosh, thank you, everybody. Like beyond.
Thank you.
All right, let me figure out how to get some sound up here. Just sound. Oh, no, that's not it. Advanced music or computer sound only. Okay, we're almost there. Ready? Can't hear it, can you? I can't. Thank you so much.
Thank you.